So we've got a new fancy schmancy Sonic game coming out, Sonic Frontiers, and I'm pretty excited for it. But as much as I always look forward to the future of Sonic, I always look back at the past games, even the ones that may not be as great as the others. There's usually always something to love about each Sonic game though. Hell, I'm a Sonic 06 fan after all. But what about this classic? Well, is it? Knuckles Chaotix. I don't know. Honestly, I never played this game before until a few months ago because, well, chances are, if you're not emulating this game, you're not playing it. Because this game was released one time. Yup, just a single time on Sega's obscure Sega Genesis add-on, the 32X. And it was never featured on any Sonic compilation ever. Now, really think about how truly absurd that is. Sonic Mega Collection, Sonic Gems Collection, Sonic Mega Collection Plus, Sonic Origins, Sonic Jam, none of them included Knuckles Chaotix. Well, apparently it was supposed to be on the Gems Collection, but Sonic Team couldn't properly emulate it for some reason, which just sounds ridiculous to me. Now, we're in 2022, and hey, Sonic Team, are you guys still having problems emulating this fucking game from 1995? I mean, seriously. But anyway, it's practically a lost cause at this point, 27 years later, so let's dive in and see how Knuckles' one and only standalone game actually is. Let me start off by saying this game is weird, and it really does feel like a departure from previous Sonic games at the time, and to tell you the truth, it still does even today, and that's okay. I'm all for a game trying to divert from what came before it in an attempt to freshen things up from games that felt pretty stylistically similar. Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles and CD all built off a formula that really felt pretty cohesive amongst one another, with CD feeling a bit odd due to its time travel and rather unorthodox level design. I had said back in my Sonic CD retrospective that the game always left me feeling a bit odd as to how I felt about it, and that's pretty much the same case here, but to a much larger extent. There's way more to like with Sonic CD because Knuckles Chaotix is just off. So off. So let me explain exactly why that is. But first, Knuckles isn't alone on his journey. He has a cast of characters who are here to help him. Mighty the Armadillo, Espio the Chameleon, Vector the Crocodile, and Charmy B. And two more undesirable characters, Bomb and Heavy. So this is by far the biggest cast of playable characters the Sonic series has seen up to this point, with 7 to choose from. But not one at a time, no. See, this is where Knuckles Chaotix gets, well, chaotic. The game is based on a tag team mechanic where you must actually have 2 characters with you at all times. But to those unaware, you may say, but Brad, didn't Sonic 2 and 3 feature Sonic and Tails as a team? Well, this is that concept, but taken to a level that feels like the very worst way of expanding on that concept. Because you see, Sonic and Tails were not tethered together by some stupid ring. Yes, for some reason, Knuckles and his pals need to both hold rings and use the energy between them to maintain a constant link. This mechanic is interesting, but to me, at the end of the day, it is a downright hindrance and never seems to work properly. And what you end up getting is a pretty messy gameplay experience. You can charge up by running in the opposite direction of your partner, and then both use the momentum to go bursting forth at a blazing fast speed. You also have to make sure that when you jump, you take your partner with you, and with this gameplay mechanic, you can imagine that your partner will get stuck a lot. Now, there is a reset button to bring your character back to the default position, but it will cost you rings. This is just a little too much to worry about, considering this is a platformer after all. Plus, if you do this enough times, you will actually go into a ring deficit. You know, guys, if there's one thing that's great about video games, especially one as outlandish as the Sonic the Hedgehog series, it's the sense of escapism, the ability of the game's premise and gameplay that takes you out of the dreary real world. But now we've got deficits to worry about. We're going into debt in a Sonic game, having to work ourselves up out of the deep, dark hole of agonizing debt, and unfortunately, there's no way we can just put what we owe on a Chaotix credit card.
I'm ruined.
Now, you may ask yourself, why even use the link technique? Can't you just use your normal momentum and perhaps the spin dash? Well, the default speed of these characters is significantly slowed down from the previous games, and the spin dash does not give you the same level of momentum, being purposely nerfed in order to get you to use the link system. So, about these characters. As I mentioned, you will always have someone tagging along with you, and you don't need to play as Knuckles if you don't want to, which is cool, and each of them has their own special ability. Knuckles has his famous glide, Espio can run along walls and ceilings, Vector can do an air dash, and Charmy can fly, and this will let you downright cheese your way through levels. I mean, this ability just outright breaks the game. So yeah, you aren't allowed to use normal momentum or the spin dash to progress normally, but you can just fly your ass off instead. Right, now to select a character, you will need to go play this claw game after each act you complete, and you will need to time and aim the claw for you to snatch the character you desire, so it can be pretty tricky because the characters keep switching around and changing, and Bomb and Heavy appear at a greater frequency than the other characters. So that's just great. Yeah, let's fucking punish the player right at the character selection screen. Heavy is a slow as molasses character that only serves to slow you down and make it harder for you to reach higher platforms, because it's harder to throw him than the other characters due to his girth. And Bomb, well, he can just straight up blow up, hurting you in the process. Yes, that's right, a character that is designed to kill you. That's just brilliant. But if the character selection wasn't random enough for you, we come now to the stage select area, and you'll see a rotating light that moves between the 5 stages, and you have to hit this star bumper in order to make it stop. So selecting a stage is once again another game of chance. Oh, I get it, Chaotix. So everything has to be chaotic, even the selection of the characters and the stages. Well, can we at least get to the stages before the chaos begins? I mean, seriously. So basically the story is Dr. Robotnik has taken over a new amusement park carnival island, imprisoning all of Knuckles' friends, and is harnessing the power of the Power Emerald to do so. Why is it called this after Sonic 3 and Knuckles already called it the Master Emerald? I couldn't tell you. After Knuckles frees Espio, he realizes that Metal Sonic is along for the ride, and I really find it pretty hilarious how Metal is just carrying Robotnik around like a small child here. So you will end up in one of the 5 stages, or attractions as they're called here to fit in with the amusement park theme, and each stage has 5 acts apiece, with the 5th act ending in a boss fight with Dr. Robotnik. Yes, you heard that correctly. Not 2 acts, not 3 acts like in the previous games, but 5 acts, or levels as they're referred to here. So you can look at this from a couple of perspectives. Either you like these stages and feel this is getting more bang for your buck by getting more acts, or you're like me and these stages aren't that great to begin with, so offering up varied versions of them is too much and feels like dragged out overkill. Well, yeah, I do feel that most agree with the latter. This game feels like it was dragged beyond where it really should have ended, or it's just pure laziness on the end of the developers because they didn't want to design any new stages, or they just settled on extending the number of acts because, let's face it, all the acts within the stages feel pretty similar. I know a case can be made for that in all Sonic games, but here it feels way more pronounced. I mean, I couldn't name you really any unique assets from one act to the next. So let's run through these stages, and let me tell you, these are some of the blandest, most identityless stages in Sonic history, with the exception of one. Amazing Arena. So this one has a gimmick that is similar to Carnival Night Zone, where you need to turn on the power to start off each stage, and in each act you will need to hit more and more switches. But these stages just feel empty, barren, and undercooked. Like, look at this place. What is it even supposed to be? Yeah, some kind of facility, but think about the classic stage I just mentioned, Carnival Night. Well, it's instantly identified as a carnival because it actually has the aesthetics of a carnival. Hell, this place doesn't even look like an arena, and it certainly isn't amazing. The navigation is also a bit confusing because it all looks very similar from section to section. Even if you have this indicator that points you to the next power switch, it still is tricky in later acts. I wandered quite a bit in these stages, and they just didn't feel fun or interesting to explore. The boss is pretty cool, as Robotnik appears off of a movie screen, and so do the badniks that assist him. Not a very nuanced boss, but the idea is cool nonetheless. Techno Tower. These are mostly vertical levels, and they're so empty and bland, and honestly to me it just looks like a mishmash of colors. I get that this is the 32X and we wanted to show off the ability of this add-on to display additional colors, but it's just so bright and a bit too much. I mean, it doesn't even look that technological given the aesthetic. It looks like a stage that's still in development when you really look at it. It is an interesting concept to have a stage that requires vertical progression, but it would be nice if the stage can have more than just the singular gimmick going for it, because there's not much here to catch your eye during the climb, the 5 times that you have to do it, mind you. Robotnik has a really simplistic moving mech for the boss fight, and it'll go down extremely fast, so not much to worry about there. Speed Slider. I mentioned Carnival Night before. Well, this might just be its deformed ugly cousin, and yeah, it sounds harsh, but honestly, I can't get over how off-putting the aesthetics of these stages look to me. This is not my cup of tea at all. In fact, it looks like that cup of tea was spiked with grounded up magic mushrooms, and I'm being forced to trip out looking at a barrage of colors that are just making me wince. The stage does give you a lot of room to use your speed, as the name of the attraction would suggest, but I found myself getting lost at times due to the very indistinguishable environment. You will need to keep charging up your speed with the link in order to make it up these seemingly endless amounts of slopes, and it gets monotonous after a while, to say the least. Robotnik will use a fitting merry-go-round machine that uses some cool 3D effects, but it won't give you much trouble at all. Marine Madness, my favorite attraction from the music to the nautical aesthetic. This is actually the only stage I really like. The ships acting as platforms, when you'd at first glance think they were just background pieces, makes for one of the game's few interesting level design choices. Granted, there's nothing so mind-blowing about this place, but I really do dig the serene environment, and the music is just a calming and relaxing piece. Robotnik is a bit cheap with the polygon shield that looks more like a testing asset for a 3D game or something out of the original Star Fox. Botanic Base. You know, I love the idea of a lush garden atmosphere, and the music is again on point, and yeah, this music is really, really good. But man, I'm just not digging these graphics, and the level design is boring once again. Oh, wow, elevators. Yeah, that's not going to cut it. The boss is a fairly innovative one because it's basically the only one that makes use of the link function by having Robotnik snatch your partner with a claw that will elevate you into the air as well, and you can use this as an opening to launch yourself at Robotnik. Plus, this is one of the most badass boss themes in the whole game. You know, I really do appreciate how Robotnik has a different theme for every boss fight he appears in. It actually feels like they put more thought into the music than the actual gameplay itself, to be quite honest. So what about those special stages? Well, these are pretty good. You'll run in a pseudo 3D environment very reminiscent to Sonic 2 and even Sonic Heroes. You will need to collect a specified number of spheres without falling off the stage. And if you succeed, you'll be awarded one of the 7 power rings. Let me tell you right now, these are not worth the effort in the least bit because it only changes the ending and actually makes it worse. Yeah, go figure. So if you want to do it for fun, then go ahead, but I personally wouldn't stress over it because the reward you get for the challenge isn't worth it. So after completing all the attractions, you will return back to the hub world and find Metal Sonic waiting for you where you would normally select your stage. It's pretty interesting that you will have to use the same bumper that would usually allow you to select the stage to damage Metal Sonic by timing it just right and hitting the X symbol. If the cursor lands on another spot, it will activate a trap instead. After Metal Sonic takes enough hits, Robotnik will step in and use the power of a Chaos Ring to turn Metal Sonic into a Crimson Giant, and he's really not that tough at all. In fact, it's pretty hard for him to even hit you if you keep your distance. Aesthetically, the boss looks awesome here, but he's not designed particularly well. So if you're like me and you failed at getting all 7 Chaos Rings, you'll get probably one of the most jarring endings in Sonic history, maybe even video game history, as Metal Sonic completely obliterates a nondescript city. How he's doing this when I just saw the guy explode is beyond me, but the menacing tune that plays accompanied by the fiery imagery is oddly surreal and sure beats the shit out of the good ending you get by collecting all 7 Chaos Rings, which is getting to see Sonic and Tails in this glorified GIF image. So yeah, there's no reason to go for these power rings as I mentioned before. This ending is just wow, it's so odd to see something so eerie and solemn in a Sonic game, but it does act as a good way of conveying that you fucked up by failing to get the good ending. But hell, considering how disappointing the good ending is, fuck it, let the city burn. So there you have it, folks. Knuckles Chaotix in all its underwhelming and unsatisfying glory. Yeah, I was very disappointed to learn that fans and critics were correct about this one. It certainly isn't a good game, and to me, it just feels like a game that focused on the core mechanic of the link system, which isn't very fun to begin with, being way too much of a hindrance, and Sonic Team didn't bother putting much thought into the level design or making it fun to explore. What we get is barren stages with nothing memorable or fun to do in them. Hell, I found a lot to like in heavily flawed games like Sonic R and even the dreaded Sonic 06, so it really is bad that I struggle to praise this game in really any department except for the tremendous music, and man, is the OST so good in this game. But if only the OST accompanied the game, that was just as much a joy to play as it is to listen to. You know, this game's failure is probably the reason why Knuckles has never gotten another solo outing, and that's a real shame and a bit perplexing because the game's quality has nothing to do with Knuckles being the main character, but I'm led to believe that somehow is a factor in the decision to not make any more Knuckles games, considering that it's been since 1995, and despite the popularity of Knuckles, the honor was never bestowed upon him again. So there you go, guys. There's my review of Knuckles Chaotix. I hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below if you've ever played this game, and if you did you enjoy it, or did you really feel very unsatisfied like I do? So, please subscribe if you haven't already, click the bell so you get all the notifications I post on my new videos. If you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up, and hit the thumbs down if you fucking hated it. And I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support. And I'll see you next time, guys.